David Chen was not supposed to be at the office that late. His entire team had left hours ago, but he stayed behind to finish the presentation for tomorrow's client meeting. The building was almost empty. Just the hum of the air conditioning and the glow of his computer screen keeping him company. He saved his work, grabbed his bag, and headed toward the elevator. His watch showed 11:30 at night. He pressed the button and waited. The elevator doors opened with a soft ping. Inside stood a woman holding 3 large catering boxes, stacked so high she could barely see over them. She wore a white chef's coat with flour stains on the sleeves, and her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She looked exhausted but managed a polite smile when David stepped inside. He pressed the button for the ground floor. She had already selected it. The doors closed, and the elevator began its descent from the 15th floor. Neither of them spoke. David checked his phone while the woman adjusted her grip on the boxes. The elevator hummed softly as it dropped floor by floor. Then everything stopped. The lights flickered once, twice, and the elevator jerked to a halt. The emergency lights kicked in, casting everything in a dim yellow glow. David looked up from his phone. The woman's eyes went wide. "What just happened?" she asked, her voice tight. "I think we're stuck," David said, pressing the emergency call button. He pressed it again. Nothing. He tried the door open button. Still, nothing. He pulled out his phone, but there was no signal inside the metal box. The woman set the catering boxes down on the floor, her hands shaking slightly. "This can't be happening. I have to get these desserts to my restaurant. They're for tomorrow's event." "I'm sure someone will get us out soon," David said, trying to sound confident. "The building has security. They'll notice the elevator stopped." She nodded but didn't look convinced. She pressed herself against the far wall of the elevator, as far from David as possible in the small space. Her breathing was getting faster. David noticed her chest rising and falling quickly, her hands gripping the handrail behind her. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I don't like small spaces," she admitted, closing her eyes. "I'm trying not to think about it." David moved a little closer. Not too close. Just enough to show he was there. "Hey, look at me. We're going to be fine. This happens all the time in these old buildings. What's your name?" She opened her eyes and met his gaze. "Isabella. Isabella Romano. I'm David. Nice to meet you. Even if the circumstances aren't great." Isabella let out a short laugh that sounded more nervous than amused. "Yeah. Not exactly how I planned to end my night." "What kind of desserts are in those boxes?" David asked, trying to distract her. "Tiramisu. My specialty. I own a small Italian restaurant about 6 blocks from here. I was catering a corporate lunch on the top floor. Dropped off everything except the desserts. I always bring those last because they need to stay cold. Italian food, that's my weakness. I could eat pasta every single day and never get tired of it." Isabella's breathing was slowing down a bit. Talking seemed to help. Most people say that until they actually try it. Then they realize they only like bad Italian food covered in too much cheese. David smiled. "Okay, you got me. I mostly eat from the place on the corner near my apartment. It's probably not authentic." "Definitely not," Isabella said, finally managing a real smile. "But I won't judge you too hard." They stood in silence for a moment. The elevator was getting warmer. David loosened his tie and unbuttoned the top button of his shirt. Isabella wiped sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. "How long do you think we'll be stuck here?" she asked. "Hard to say. Could be 10 minutes. Could be an hour. The security guard does rounds every hour. So worst case, he'll notice soon." Isabella's face went pale again. "An hour? I can't do an hour in here." Her breathing picked up again and she started to slide down the wall. David moved quickly, catching her arm before she could sit on the floor. The moment he touched her, he felt it. A jolt of something electric that had nothing to do with the broken elevator. Their eyes met, and for a second, Neither of them moved. "Sorry," Isabella said, straightening up. But she didn't pull her arm away from his hand. "Don't be sorry. Just breathe. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Like this." David demonstrated and Isabella copied him. They stood there, breathing together. His hand still on her arm. The space between them felt charged with something neither wanted to name. After a minute, Isabella's panic seemed to pass. "Thank you," she whispered. "I thought I was going to lose it there. You're tougher than you think." Anyone who runs their own restaurant has to be strong. Isabella laughed softly. "Some days I feel strong. Other days I wonder what I was thinking. The restaurant business is brutal. Long hours, thin profits, staff drama. But it's mine, you know? I built it from nothing. I get that. I'm an architect. I spend months designing buildings and then watch other people take credit when they're finished. But seeing something I created actually standing in the world, that makes it worth it." They talked about their work, about the city, about everything and nothing. David learned that Isabella had opened her restaurant 3 years ago, after saving every penny she earned working in other people's kitchens. She learned that David had gotten divorced 8 months ago and was still figuring out how to be single again after 10 years of marriage. "What happened?" Isabella asked, then quickly added, "Sorry. That's too personal. You don't have to answer." "No, it's okay. She chose her career over our marriage. Got offered a position in London and left without really considering whether I'd come with her. I had my whole life here. My business, my clients. She expected me to drop everything. When I asked her to stay, or at least try long distance, she said she couldn't sacrifice her dreams for me. That must have hurt. It did. Still does sometimes. Makes you question everything, you know? Whether the whole thing was real, or if I was just convenient for a while." Isabella nodded slowly. "I know that feeling. Different situation, but same result. I dated someone for 4 years. Thought we were building a life together. Then I told him I wanted to open my own restaurant, and he laughed. Actually laughed. Said I was being childish and unrealistic. Told me to get a real job. I left that night and never looked back. Good for you. Anyone who doesn't support your dreams doesn't deserve to be part of them." Exactly what I thought. But it made me careful. You know? After that, I just focused on the restaurant. Haven't really let anyone close since then. The elevator suddenly lurched, and Isabella stumbled forward. David caught her, his arms wrapping around her waist to steady her. For a moment they were pressed together, her body against his in the small space. David could feel her heartbeat, or maybe it was his own. He couldn't tell anymore. Isabella's face was inches from his. He could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes, could smell the faint scent of vanilla and cinnamon on her skin from hours in the kitchen. Neither of them moved. The air between them felt thick and hot. Then the elevator lurched again, and the lights came back on. The normal hum of machinery returned, and they started moving down. David ran a hand through his hair and looked anywhere but at her. The elevator reached the ground floor, and the doors opened. A security guard stood there, with a walkie-talkie in his hand. "You folks okay? Electrical problem knocked out 3 elevators. Got them all running again." "We're fine," David said, his voice sounding rough even to his own ears. Isabella grabbed her boxes and hurried past the guard into the lobby. David followed more slowly, not sure what to say or do. She was already at the front door when she turned back. "Thank you," she called out. Then she was gone, disappearing into the night. David stood in the empty lobby and wondered if he'd ever see her again. He realized he hoped he would. 3 days passed and David couldn't stop thinking about the woman from the elevator. He caught himself looking up Italian restaurants in the area during his lunch break. There were dozens of them, but only one was 6 blocks from his office and owned by someone named Isabella. Romano's. He'd walked past it 100 times and never noticed it before. On Thursday afternoon, David found himself standing outside Romano's at noon. The lunch rush was in full swing. Through the large front window, he could see every table was full. The smell of garlic and fresh bread drifted out onto the sidewalk. He stood there for 5 full minutes trying to decide whether to go inside or keep walking. Then he saw her. Isabella was moving between tables, carrying plates, laughing with customers, completely in her element. She looked different in the daylight, more confident, more alive. Her hair was down today, falling in waves past her shoulders. She wore a simple black dress and an apron tied around her waist. She glanced toward the window and their eyes met. Recognition flashed across her face, followed by something else. Surprise, maybe? Or pleasure? She smiled and waved him inside. David's heart was pounding as he pushed open the door. The restaurant was small but beautiful, with exposed brick walls, soft lighting, and the warm buzz of conversation filling the air. Isabella met him near the entrance. "The elevator guy," she said, her smile growing wider. "I was wondering if I'd run into you again. I was in the neighborhood and remembered you said your restaurant was around here. Thought I'd check it out." "Liar. You looked it up." But she was teasing, not angry. "Come on, I'll find you a table. Actually, I was thinking takeout. I don't want to intrude during your busy time." "Nonsense. Anyone who talked me through a panic attack in a broken elevator gets a proper meal. Besides, I want to know what you think of real Italian food." She led him to a small table near the back, away from the chaos of the lunch crowd. David sat down, and Isabella brought him a menu, but she didn't leave. "Can I be honest?" she asked. "I'm really glad you came. I almost went to your office building yesterday to find you, but I thought that might be weird." "Not weird. I've been thinking about you too. About that night. The worst elevator ride of my life, and somehow also one of the most interesting." Isabella was called away by one of her servers, but she kept glancing back at David while she worked. He ordered the lunch special, not even looking at what it was. When the food came, he understood why Isabella was so proud of her restaurant. The pasta was perfect. The sauce rich but not heavy. Everything seasoned just right. Isabella slid into the seat across from him during a brief lull in the lunch rush. "Well, you were right. The place near my apartment is definitely not authentic. This is incredible. My grandmother's recipe. She taught me everything I know about cooking. She's the one who convinced me to open this place." They talked while David ate. Isabella told him about the challenges of running a small restaurant, about the lease negotiations that nearly killed the deal, about the health inspector who tried to shut her down over a technicality. David told her about his current project, a mixed-use building downtown that was 3 months behind schedule. "Can I show you something?" Isabella asked. "I've been meaning to ask someone about this, but I don't know any architects." She led him to the far corner of the restaurant, where an awkward alcove created dead space. "This area never works. I can't fit a full table here, and it's too visible for storage. I've rearranged it a dozen times, but nothing feels right." David studied the space, walking around it, measuring with his eyes. "You need to embrace the awkwardness instead of fighting it. Make it a feature, not a flaw. A cozy booth for 2, maybe with a small shelf for wine bottles as a visual break. Turn it into the most romantic table in the restaurant." "Gran. That's actually brilliant. Why didn't I think of that?" "Because you're too close to it. Sometimes you need fresh eyes." Isabella looked at him thoughtfully. "Would you be willing to come back after we close tonight? I have the building plans somewhere in my office. Maybe you could take a look. Give me some other ideas? I can't pay much, but I'll feed you." David knew he should say no. He barely knew this woman, but there was something about her that made him want to say yes to everything. "What time?" We close at 10. Come around 10:30. That evening, David showed up at exactly 10:30. The restaurant was dark, except for the kitchen, and a single table near the back where Isabella had set out papers, building plans, and 2 glasses of red wine. She'd changed into jeans and a soft sweater, her hair pulled back again like the night they met. They spread the plans across the table, and David started pointing out possibilities. A better flow for the kitchen. A way to expand the dining room by removing a non-load-bearing wall. Ideas for better lighting. Isabella listened intently, asking questions, challenging some of his suggestions, with ideas of her own. An hour passed, then 2. They'd finished the bottle of wine and opened another. The conversation had drifted from the restaurant to their lives, to the things they wanted, to the things that scared them. "Can I ask you something?" Isabella said. "That night, in the elevator, right before we got moving again, did you feel it too?" David set down his wine glass. "Yes. I thought maybe I imagined it. Or maybe it was just adrenaline from being trapped." "It wasn't adrenaline." "Then what was it?" David didn't have an answer. Isabella stood up and walked toward the kitchen, and for a moment David thought he'd said the wrong thing. But then, she turned back. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. That probably makes me sound desperate or crazy. But I'm tired of pretending. 3 days. I've been wondering if you'd come find me." David stood and crossed the distance between them. "I walked past your restaurant twice before I got the courage to come inside today." They were standing close now, closer than necessary. Isabella looked up at him, and David saw the same uncertainty in her eyes that he felt. The fear of taking a risk, of getting hurt, of wanting something that might disappear. "I don't do this," Isabella said softly. "I don't let people in easily." "Neither do I. Not anymore." "Nain. My last relationship ended 3 years ago, and I haven't wanted anyone since then. Until now." David reached out slowly, giving her time to move away. She didn't. He touched her face gently, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Isabella closed her eyes and leaned into his touch. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I'm really scared." "Me too." Then she opened her eyes and looked at him with an intensity that made his breath catch. Isabella rose up on her toes and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, testing. But then David's arms went around her waist and pulled her closer. Isabella's hands slid up to his neck, and the kiss deepened. All the tension from the elevator, all the wondering, all the careful distance they'd maintained, collapsed in that moment. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. Isabella's cheeks were flushed, and David's heart was racing like he'd just run a marathon. "Wow," Isabella said. "Yeah. Wow." They stood there holding each other, neither wanting to let go, both knowing they'd just crossed a line they couldn't uncross. The restaurant plans lay forgotten on the table. The wine sat untouched. Nothing else mattered except this moment, this feeling. This person who'd appeared in David's life in a broken elevator and somehow made everything feel possible again. 2 weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and secret meetings. David found excuses to visit Isabella's restaurant almost every day. Sometimes for lunch, sometimes just for coffee, sometimes late at night after she closed. They hadn't told anyone they were seeing each other. It felt too new, too fragile to share with the world yet. Their relationship moved fast. Every conversation revealed new layers. Every touch created electricity. They spent hours talking about everything and nothing, learning each other's stories, sharing the broken pieces neither had shown anyone else in years. One Tuesday evening, David came to the restaurant to help Isabella with the renovation ideas they'd discussed. She'd gotten approval from her landlord to make some changes, and David had volunteered to oversee the work. They'd spent the last hour measuring walls and discussing paint colors. "I need to check the ceiling height in the storage room," Isabella said, grabbing a tape measure and a ladder from the back. The storage room was cramped and cluttered with supplies. Isabella climbed the ladder, while David held it steady at the base. She reached up to measure, but the ladder wobbled on the uneven floor. "Careful," David said, gripping the sides tighter. "I've got it, just need to." Isabella stretched higher, standing on her toes on the top rung. That's when the ladder shifted. She lost her balance and fell backward with a startled gasp. David caught her, his arms wrapping around her waist as she slid down against him. The tape measure clattered to the floor. For a moment, neither of them moved. Isabella was pressed against David's chest, his arms tight around her. She could feel his heart pounding against her back. Slowly, she turned in his arms until they were face to face. They were so close she could feel his breath on her lips. "You okay?" David asked, his voice low. "Yeah, thanks for catching me." But neither of them let go. Isabella's hands rested on David's chest. His arms were still around her waist. The storage room felt suddenly smaller, hotter. All the careful control they'd been maintaining for 2 weeks was crumbling. "David," Isabella whispered, "I need to tell you something." "What?" "I can't stop thinking about you. When you're not here, I'm checking my phone waiting for your messages. When you are here, I'm trying not to touch you every second. It's making me crazy." David's grip on her waist tightened slightly. "You think you're the only one?" "I've been distracted at work. My team thinks something's wrong with me. All I think about is the next time I'll see you. What are we doing here?" "I don't know. But I know I don't want to stop." Isabella looked up at him with those gold-flecked brown eyes, and David felt something in his chest crack open. All his careful walls, all his promises to himself to take things slow, all his fear of getting hurt again. None of it mattered when she looked at him like that. "I'm terrified," Isabella admitted. "I told myself I wouldn't do this again. Wouldn't let someone get close enough to hurt me. I know. I've been telling myself the same thing every day since we met. But I think maybe being scared means it matters. If I didn't care, I wouldn't be afraid of losing you." Isabella's eyes went bright with unshed tears. She pulled David's face down to hers and kissed him hard. There was nothing tentative about it this time. It was need and want and all the feelings they'd been holding back for 2 weeks. David walked her backward until her back hit the wall. His hands slid from her waist to her hips, pulling her closer. Isabella's fingers tangled in his hair. The storage room was forgotten. The measurements were forgotten. Everything except this moment disappeared. "We should stop," Isabella said between kisses, even as her hands pulled him closer. "Probably," David agreed, kissing her neck. "My office has a door that locks." They barely made it to her office. The small room was cluttered with papers and invoices, but neither of them cared. David locked the door, while Isabella cleared the desk with one sweep of her arm. Papers scattered to the floor. Then they were together, finally giving in to everything they'd been fighting. Afterward, they lay on the small couch in her office. Isabella curled against David's chest, his arms wrapped around her. Neither spoke for a long time. The restaurant was quiet around them. Street sounds filtered in from outside, but inside her office it felt like they were the only 2 people in the world. "What happens now?" Isabella asked quietly. "What do you want to happen?" "I want this. Us. Whatever this is." David kissed the top of her head. "We'll figure it out. Together. No pressure. No rush. We'll just see where it goes. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me if you start having doubts. If this gets too complicated. If you're not sure anymore. You'll tell me. Don't just disappear. I can handle honest, but I can't handle being left without knowing why." David pulled her closer. "I promise. Same goes for you. We talk about things, even when it's hard. Deal." They stayed like that for another hour, just holding each other, neither wanting to move. Finally, Isabella checked her phone and groaned. "It's almost 1 in the morning. I have to be back here at 6 to prep for breakfast service. You need sleep. I need a lot of things right now. Sleep is pretty low on the list." David laughed and kissed her again. "Come on. I'll help you lock up. They closed the restaurant together, turning off lights, checking doors, moving through the routine like they'd done it 100 times before. Outside on the sidewalk, David pulled Isabella close one more time. When can I see you again? Tomorrow? I mean today, technically. Come for lunch. I'll be here. He watched her walk to her car, waited until she was safely inside, and pulling away from the curb before he headed to his own car. The drive home felt different somehow. The city looked brighter. Everything felt possible in a way it hadn't in months, maybe years. David didn't know what would happen next. Didn't know if this thing with Isabella would last a week or a lifetime. But for the first time since his divorce, he felt like himself again. Like he could breathe again. Like maybe, just maybe, taking a chance on someone was worth the risk of getting hurt. He pulled into his parking spot and sat in his car for a moment, replaying the evening in his mind. The way Isabella felt in his arms. The way she looked at him. The way she made him laugh. The way she challenged him. The way she made everything else disappear when they were together. His phone buzzed. A text from Isabella. Made it home safe. Already missing you. Is that pathetic? David smiled and typed back. If it is, then we're both pathetic. Sleep well. You too. See you tomorrow. David got out of his car and headed to his apartment, already counting the hours until he'd see her again. The next 3 weeks were perfect. David and Isabella fell into an easy rhythm. They saw each other almost every day, alternating between her restaurant and his apartment. Their connection deepened beyond the physical. They became each other's safe place, the person they called when something good happened or when they needed to vent about a bad day. David's work improved. His creativity came back. Ideas flowed easier. His team noticed the change but didn't ask questions. Isabella's restaurant thrived too. She was happier, more energized, and it showed in everything she did. Even her staff noticed she was different, lighter somehow. But on a Thursday morning, everything shifted. David was in his office going over blueprints when his assistant knocked on the door. Someone's here to see you. Says it's important. I don't have any appointments this morning. I know. But she was pretty insistent. David walked out to the reception area and stopped cold. Jennifer stood by the window, looking exactly like she had the day she left. Blonde hair perfectly styled, designer suit, confident posture. His ex-wife smiled when she saw him. Hi, David. Can we talk? His brain went blank. He hadn't seen or heard from Jennifer in 8 months. Not since she'd signed the divorce papers and flew to London. Now she was standing in his office, like no time had passed at all. What are you doing here? Can we go somewhere private, please? David led her to his office and closed the door. Jennifer sat in the chair across from his desk, but David remained standing, arms crossed. I made a mistake, Jennifer said without preamble. Going to London. Ending our marriage. All of it. I made a terrible mistake, and I want to fix it. You're 8 months too late. I know I hurt you. But I've been miserable, David. The job isn't what I thought it would be. London is lonely. I miss home. I miss you. I want us to try again. David felt like he'd been punched. For months after Jennifer left, he'd fantasized about this exact moment. Her coming back, admitting she was wrong, wanting him again. He'd imagined how good it would feel to hear her say she made a mistake. But now that it was actually happening, he felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, not even relief. Just a strange emptiness. You can't just show up and expect everything to go back to the way it was. I know. But we were good together once. We built a life. 10 years, David. That has to mean something. 2. It did mean something. Past tense. You made your choice. People change their minds. I'm asking for another chance. Don't I deserve that? David sat down heavily in his chair. I don't know what you deserve. I don't know what I feel right now except confused. That's okay. I'm not asking for an answer today. Just think about it. We were happy once. We could be happy again. Jennifer stood and walked around the desk. She put her hand on David's shoulder. I'm staying at the Marriott downtown. Room 412. Call me when you're ready to talk. Then she was gone, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume and chaos in her wake. David sat alone in his office for 20 minutes, staring at nothing, his mind racing. He didn't tell Isabella about Jennifer's visit. He told himself it was because there was nothing to tell. Jennifer showing up didn't change anything. He was with Isabella now. He was happy. Jennifer was the past. But over the next few days, doubt crept in. Had he moved on too fast? Was Isabella just a rebound? What if Jennifer was right, and they could fix things? They'd built a whole life together. Didn't he owe it to that history to at least consider it? Isabella noticed the change immediately. David became distant during their time together, distracted. When they were intimate, he seemed somewhere else. When they talked, he gave short answers and didn't share details about his day the way he usually did. On Saturday night, Isabella confronted him at his apartment. They'd just finished dinner, and David was doing dishes, avoiding eye contact. "What's going on with you?" Isabella asked. "Nothing. I'm fine." "You're not fine. You've been weird for 3 days. Did I do something wrong?" "No, it's not you." "Then what is it? Talk to me." David dried his hands and turned to face her. "Jennifer came to my office. My ex-wife. She wants to get back together." "Well." Isabella's face went completely still. "When?" "Thursday morning. 3 days ago." "And you're just telling me now?" "I didn't think it mattered. I'm not getting back together with her." "But you're thinking about it." "What?" "David, I can feel you pulling away. Ever since Thursday, you've been different. More distant. Like you're not really here when we're together." David wanted to deny it, but he couldn't. She was right. "I'm sorry. I'm just confused. She threw me off showing up like that." Isabella's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "I knew this was too good to be true. I'm the rebound girl. The distraction, while you got over your real relationship. That's not fair. Isn't it?" She shows up, and suddenly, you're questioning everything. If I mattered to you, there wouldn't be any question. You would have told her to leave, and not thought about it twice. It's not that simple. We were together for 10 years, and she left you. She chose her career over you. But the second she comes back, you're ready to forget all that? Why? 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 David ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "I'm not ready to forget anything. I just need time to think." "About what exactly?" "About whether you want to be with her or with me? Because if you need time to think about that, you've already given me your answer." "Isabella, please." "No. I told you I needed honesty. I told you if you had doubts to tell me. And instead, you've been lying to me for 3 days, pretending everything was fine while you second-guessed us. I wasn't lying. I was trying to figure things out. By shutting me out. That's not how this works. That's not what we promised each other." "Geez." Isabella grabbed her jacket and bag. David moved to stop her, but she held up her hand. "I'm not doing this. I'm not going to wait around while you figure out if I'm good enough compared to the woman who broke your heart. Call me when you know what you actually want. If you even want me at all. Of course I want you. Then prove it. Because right now, I don't believe you." She walked out and David let her go. He stood in his empty apartment feeling like the biggest fool in the world. He'd hurt the one person who'd made him feel alive again because he couldn't let go of the past. That night, Jennifer called. David stared at his phone for a long time before answering. "Have you thought about what I said?" she asked. "I have. And? I need to see you. Tomorrow." I'll be here. David hung up and looked around his apartment. Everything reminded him of Isabella. The coffee mug she always used. The blanket she kept on his couch, because she was always cold. The bottle of wine they'd shared last weekend still sitting on the counter. He'd made a mess of everything. And tomorrow, he had to fix it. Sunday morning, David showed up at the Marriott at 9. Jennifer opened the door wearing a hotel robe, her hair still wet from the shower. She smiled like she knew why he was there. "I'm glad you came. Want some coffee?" "No. I need to say something, and then I need to leave." Jennifer's smile faded. "Okay. You showing up here made me realize something I should have figured out months ago. You leaving me was the best thing that could have happened. Not because you're a bad person, but because we weren't right for each other anymore. Maybe we never were. David, I know I hurt you, but let me finish. I spent 8 months thinking I was broken because you left, thinking there was something wrong with me that made you choose London over our marriage. But there wasn't anything wrong with me. We just wanted different things. You wanted your career. I wanted a partner who was willing to build a life with me. Neither of those things is wrong. They just weren't compatible. We could make it work this time. I'm willing to compromise." "No, you're not. You're lonely, and London didn't work out the way you hoped. So you came back looking for something familiar. But I'm not your backup plan. I'm not the safe option you choose when the exciting option doesn't work out." Jennifer's face hardened. "That's not fair." "Maybe not, but it's true. And more importantly, I met someone. Someone who makes me feel things I never felt with you. Someone who sees me, really sees me, and doesn't want me to be anyone except who I am. The rebound girl. Don't call her that. Her name is Isabella, and she's not a rebound. She's the person who showed me what it feels like when someone actually chooses you every single day. Not because it's convenient or familiar, but because they genuinely want to be with you. So that's it? 10 years together? Means nothing? It means we had a good run. But it's over. It's been over since the day you booked that flight to London. I'm just sorry it took me this long to accept it." David walked to the door. Jennifer stayed where she was, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. "I hope you find what you're looking for," David said. "I really do. But it's not going to be with me. Goodbye, Jennifer." He walked out and didn't look back. The drive to Isabella's restaurant took 15 minutes but felt like hours. His heart pounded the entire way. What if she wouldn't see him? What if she'd already decided he wasn't worth the trouble? What if he'd ruined the best thing that had happened to him in years? The restaurant wasn't open yet on Sundays. But David knew Isabella would be there prepping for the week. He knocked on the glass door. Through the window, he could see her in the kitchen. She looked up, saw him, and for a moment he thought she might ignore him. But then she walked to the door and unlocked it. "What do you want, David?" "To apologize, to explain, to beg you to give me another chance." "I'm listening. Can I come in?" Isabella stepped aside and David walked into the restaurant. It smelled like fresh bread and coffee. Isabella crossed her arms and waited. "I saw Jennifer this morning. I told her it was over. Completely and finally over. She wanted to try again, and I said no. Good for you. Isabella, I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. I was using Jennifer's return as an excuse to run away because I was scared. Scared of how much I feel for you. Scared of getting hurt again. Scared that something this good couldn't possibly last. And now I realize that being scared is exactly why I should stay. Because, if it didn't matter, I wouldn't be afraid of losing it. You matter, more than I knew how to handle." Isabella's arms dropped to her sides, but she didn't move closer. "You hurt me. You shut me out instead of talking to me. That's exactly what I asked you not to do. I know. I know, and I'm sorry. I promise, If you give me another chance, I will never do that again. When things get hard, or scary, or confusing, I'll talk to you. No more running. No more shutting down. How do I know you mean that? How do I know you won't just leave the next time things get difficult? David closed the distance between them. You don't know. That's the terrifying part. I can't promise I'll never mess up again. I can't promise everything will always be perfect. But I can promise I'll show up. Every single day. I'll choose you. I'll choose us. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. None. Over. None. Nunder. Isabella's eyes were bright with tears. I was ready to walk away. To protect myself before you could hurt me worse. I know. And I would have deserved it. But I'm asking you not to. I'm asking you to take a chance on the guy who talked you through a panic attack in a broken elevator. On the guy who thinks your tiramisu is the best thing he's ever tasted. On the guy who is completely in love with you and just needed a wake-up call to admit it. You love me? Yeah, I do. I'm in love with you. I think I have been since that night in the elevator. It just took me too long to realize it. A tear rolled down Isabella's cheek. You're an idiot. Completely agreed. And if I forgive you, you have to promise to never lie to me again. Not even by omission. I promise. And you have to meet my grandmother. Fair warning, she's going to interrogate you. I'll bring flowers. Isabella laughed through her tears. She'll hate that. She thinks flowers are a waste of money. Then I'll bring wine. Better choice. They stood there smiling at each other like idiots. Then Isabella closed the final distance and wrapped her arms around David's neck. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair, breathing her in. I love you too, she whispered. In case that wasn't obvious. Say it again. I love you, David Chen. Even though you're sometimes an idiot who makes terrible decisions. I'll take it. They kissed and it felt like coming home. Like finding something David didn't know he'd been searching for. When they finally pulled apart, Isabella was smiling. So what happens now? Now we figure it out together. No more secrets. No more running. Just us being honest and messy and real. I can do that. Good, because I'm not letting you go again. 6 months later, David stood in Isabella's restaurant watching the grand reopening party. The renovations had turned out even better than he'd hoped. The awkward alcove was now the most requested table in the restaurant, exactly like he'd predicted. The kitchen was bigger and more efficient. The dining room had been expanded. Everything Isabella had dreamed of was now real. She moved through the crowd in a new dress, her hair down, her face glowing with pride. Every few minutes, she'd catch David's eye and smile. He'd smile back and mouth, I love you. Later, when the party wound down and the last guests left, David helped Isabella clean up. They worked side by side, comfortable in the silence, moving around each other like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Thank you, Isabella said as they locked up for the night. For what? For pushing me to make the changes. For believing in me. For being here. For always. They walked out into the cool night air. The street was quiet. The city settling down to sleep. Isabella leaned against David, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. You know what I just realized? She asked. What? That night we got stuck in the elevator. I was so panicked, I thought I might pass out. I was convinced it was the worst thing that could happen to me. And now? Now I think it might have been the best thing. Because if that elevator hadn't broken, I never would have met you. Never would have had this. Never would have known what it feels like when someone really sees you. David kissed the top of her head. Guess we owe that old elevator a thank you. We really do. They stood there under the streetlights, holding each other. Both thinking about the random chance that brought them together. A broken elevator. A panic attack. A conversation that turned into something neither of them expected. I'm glad it broke, David said quietly. Me too. Best, worst night of my life. Mine too. They walked to Isabella's car together, still holding on to each other, neither ready to let go. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears, new moments of doubt. But tonight, they had this. They had each other. And sometimes, that was more than enough.